Good afternoon, teachers, parents, and students. Today, I'm going to be presenting about a very interesting topic. But before we start, let's all play a game. It's called What If? I'll go first. What if I told you that those moments you try hardest to avoid are actually the ones that help you grow the most? Sounds crazy, right? I'm pretty sure that those faces I see right now are those faces of surprise. Hi again, my name is Vicky and I'm from class 7B, and today I'm proudly presenting the topic of why did my best lessons happen when I was allowed to fail? Let's take a quick moment to ask yourself this question. And yes, I know it may seem uncomfortable, but since it helps my presentation, please do. Okay, listen to this. What's the last thing you failed at? Not a small mistake, a real failure. The kind that makes your stomach drop. The kind you replay at 2 a.m. And what's interesting is that while our successes often fade into the background, our failures tend to remain vivid and unforgettable. Perhaps that is not a coincidence, because instead of pushing failure away, what we should be doing instead is paying closer attention to it. We're taught to chase perfect grades, good scores, and achievements, but no one really ever taught us how to fail well. So let's flip the script. Why did my best lessons happen when I was allowed to fail? Why? To answer this question, I have thought of 3 reasons. First of all, failure forces awareness. Success, while rewarding, often allows us to remain uncritical of our own actions. When things go well, we tend to assume that our approach was correct, without questioning the process behind it. On the other hand, failure removes that comfort. It forces us to confront gaps in our understanding, to reflect on our decisions, and to recognize what we may have overlooked. Raise your hand if you know this famous person. I don't see a lot of hands, which means I know you did not pay attention in your classes when you were younger. Is that right? Right, anyways, this is Thomas Edison, the person who invented the light bulb, who brought light to humanity. But before successfully doing that, he encountered failures hundreds, if not thousands of times. But instead of viewing these attempts as wasted effort, he reframed them as necessary steps toward clarity. In doing so, failure transformed from an obstacle into a tool for deeper understanding. As Thomas Edison once said, "I have not failed. I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work," proving this point that failure does not simply show us that something went wrong. It also reveals why it went wrong. Second of all, failure builds resilience. Failure is not just a test of ability, but also a test of endurance. It challenges us not just what we can do, but whether we are willing to continue when the progress is uncertain. Take J.K. Rowling as an example. Before achieving global recognition, her work was rejected multiple times, each rejection reinforcing doubt rather than success. What is remarkable is not just her eventual achievement, but her decision to persist despite repeated discouragement. Because in reality, success may demonstrate competence, but failure reveals resilience. And over time, it is resilience, not just talent, that determines the long-term growth. Finally, failure creates growth. There's a difference between winning and growing. Failure helps us to become a better version of yourselves. Since growth also does that, we can say that failure forces growth. Let's make it relatable. Imagine a student who has never failed and always gets top scores. He or she may feel smart until they face something difficult. Then suddenly, that student does not know how to recover from their mistakes. They don't know how to handle the pressure. They don't know how to try again. Now compare that to a student who has failed multiple times, then that student has learned how to adapt, how to reflect, and how to restart. So failure does not just change your results, it changes you guys, it changes me, and it may change all of us. I'm pretty sure that maybe some of you might remember me from last year's competition. If not, then it's totally fine, I understand, because I had not moved on to the next round. So this year, I choose to learn from my mistakes. Last year taught me how to prepare differently, how to make choices based on my emotions and tone, how to speak slower and more engagingly. But most importantly, last year taught me that failure is not the opposite of success. It is actually part of it. As I come to the end of my talk, I would like to leave everyone with this very important thought. Failure is not something to be avoided at all costs, but something to be understood. Because within every failure lies a question, asking whether or not we are capable, but whether we are willing to continue and learn. So the next time you encounter failure, instead of dismissing it, take a moment, try to reflect on it. Ask yourself, what is it trying to teach you? Because our best lessons don't happen during those moments of success, but it happens in the moments when things do not go our way. And it is often through those moments where we begin to move forward in the most meaningful way. Thank you everyone for your time, and I hope everyone has a nice day.